Hi, I'm Arjun from Wizards.exe. In this video, we're going to go over the different screw types in the first global kit. We're going to start off with the most common screw, which is these M3 8mm hex head screws. These are going to be used for most of the different objects on your first global robot. For example, screwing into brackets, motor mounts, or anything else of the sort. The next screw I'm going to go over is the M3 16mm hex head screw. These are slightly longer than the 8mm hex head screws and are used for a lot of different other things. For example, screwing into your control hub or expansion hub, or screwing through sprockets or wheels. We're going to go over the next screw, which are these M3 hex head 35mm screws. These are much longer and are used for whenever you need a very long screw. The last thing we're going to go over are these M3 8mm drop-in screws. These ones, there are 100 of them, and they're a very special screw since they're not hex head. These screws are used only as a last resort when time is tight and you really need to put another bracket on your robot and there's no access for you to add another bracket. These allow you to put a screw into the REV extrusion without having to slide it in from the side of the extrusion piece. I'm going to go over how to use them. Here I have a scenario where we would want to use drop-in screws if time is tight. I want to be able to put this bar of REV extrusion right here onto this 45-degree bar of REV extrusion using this bracket. The main problem here is that there's already brackets on this side of the REV extrusion and on this side, on this face of the REV extrusion, meaning that I can't just slide a screw through the side. Instead, I have to use the M3 8mm drop-in screws. The first step to using them is to put them into the bracket. Okay, now I've put them into the side of the bracket. You can see that these have a sort of rectangular head. You want to line them up with the alignment ribs on the REV extrusion so that they are going to, when you put it into the REV extrusion, you want to spin the screws until the alignment ribs in the bracket are sitting flush with the REV and there's no space between them. This can be a really hard step to do, so I like to just look at it as you want the rectangular head of the screw to go into the REV extrusion. Okay, now you can see that I have my bracket flush with the REV extrusion. So next step is to tighten them. The first thing you need to do when tightening them is make sure that the screw is all the way down. You can do this just by pushing on the nut. Then you tighten it while making sure that you're not bringing the screw out, as then instead of acting like a hex head in the REV extrusion, it's just going to tighten itself against the two ridges and on the REV extrusion, meaning that it won't actually connect your bracket to the REV extrusion. I'm going to do the same for this other screw. Okay, now it's tight and you can see it's just as strong as normal screws would be, 8mm M3 hex head screws would be. Except there's one thing that you should know when using these drop-in screws, is that if they get loose, it's hard to know it, but then once they get loose, it's hard to put them back in. While with normal M3 8mm hex head screws, you can just tighten up the screw. Sometimes that won't work. Thank you for watching this video. Comment below or email wizards.exe@gmail.com if you have any questions about this video.